On 4th August 2020, a large amount of ammonium nitrate stored at the port of city of Beirut, the capital of Lebanon, exploded, causing at least 204 deaths, 6,500 injuries, and 15 billion in property damage, and leaving an estimated 300,000 people homeless. A cargo of 2,750 tons of the substance had been stored in a warehouse without proper safety measures for the previous 6 years. The Lebanon's Prime Minister, Hassan Diab, blamed the detonation of 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate that he said had been stored unsafely at a warehouse in the port. A similar amount of the chemical arrived on a Russian ship called the MV Roses, which docked in Beirut in 2013 after suffering technical problems while sailing from Georgia to Mozambique. The Roses was inspected, banned from living, and was shortly afterwards abandoned by its owner, and by the neglection, who would have thought it would cause a disaster. Presence of 2,750 metric tons of ammonium nitrate that was stored in Hangar 12 at the port was the hazard of this incident. The store has been there since September 2013. The detonation of the ammonium nitrate was initially caused by the ignition of fireworks that was stored near the warehouse. There was actually a spark that ignited the fireworks. A group of investigators have claimed that probably the sparks from welding work was the initiation event of this incident. The deviation in this incident is the occurring fire after the ignition of the fireworks. The improper storage conditions makes ammonium nitrate more sensitive over time. It was reported that an oily liquid was seeping out of the store, suspected of being highly flammable, and this could have been the fuse to light a bigger fire. After a few seconds, the explosion finally occurred. The fire that was not eliminated immediately and appropriately caused the ammonium nitrate to detonate. Eventually, the first relatively mild detonation occurs again, with a good deal of dark smoke. After all the ammonium nitrate in the explosion has been consumed, the incident came to the termination point. Hundreds of people were killed, thousands were at least injured, and dozens were missing, and around 300,000 of residents were displaced.
Action taken. There are several efforts and measures taken by the local government and also countries from all over the world, such as the investigation actions, relief operation action, domestic action, and also international action. Investigations action. Investigation committee was established by Government Prime Minister Hassan Diab, and the committee involved are Justice, Interior and Defense Ministers and the head top 4 securities agencies. And in 1 October, 2 Russian citizens detained by Interpol as requested by the country's state prosecution. Relief operation. In response to the explosions, a total of 375 medics and 75 ambulances were operated. Humanitarian aid also sent to Lebanon by the countries all over the world, like from the Iraq, the USA, and other countries. Domestic action. A national day of mourning was declared the day after the blast. Diab called for early elections, state it would be the only way for the crisis to be solved, and multiple members of Lebanese parliament resigned in protest. This is where the first government resignation since the explosion and where President Michel Aoun accepted the resignation. International actions. Notably, Israel offered aid via United Nations channels. However, the offer was refused by the government, as Israel and Lebanon have no diplomatic ties and are technically at war. Ethical aspect regarding the tragedy. A proposed safety strategy in handling the hazardous ammonium nitrate should be taken. From a safety and risk-based perspective, it is clear that there were deficiencies in the management system on hazard identification and risk assessment. Despite the action taken by the government, there is no official report on the enforcement of safety measures and regulations taken by the government. There are also exposure to risks of this hazardous material, along with the 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate stored. There were also reported that 15 tons of fireworks, wooden pellets, kerosene, and other stuff being stored together. This act was significantly confirmed the negligence and lack of safety adhered by the authorities. Thus, we need to follow the rules regulated by the authorities. Excellent ethical aspect of the US officials is shown here in ensuring the best layers of protection LOPA in avoiding future loss events.
There are three types of hazard being realized in these incidents, which is the material hazard, energy hazard, and also the chemical interaction hazard. However, in these incidents, the material hazard, which is the ammonium nitrate, is on the main importance. Ammonium nitrate is an odorless, combustible, and explosive materials which is widely used for fertilizers and explosives. Since there is no improvement or new policy developed by the government, thus this section serves as the recommendation based on our own perspective that the Lebanese government can take in order to highlight the explosion hazard and to provide some insight into the safety layers that are necessary to prevent future cases. In establishing an outstanding safety measures policy, it is important to practice multiple layers of protection, which is known as LOPA, the layer of protection analysis, in order to minimize the risk to level that is known as ALAP. The first layer of protection is contain and control. For the enforcement approach, the new policy made by the government should be of the requirement of every facility to identify the hazard of every material, evaluate the hazard and do the risk assessment, and then implement the control measure to eliminate or minimize the risk from that hazard. For the engineering approach, it is the use of three lines of defense. For the engineering control, the design of the ammonium nitrate storage should be only in non-combustible buildings and non-combustible bins. The floor in an storage facility should be constructed without the elevator pits or pipes where the molten ammonium nitrate could flow into and accumulate. The location of electrical switches should be made in outside the storage area to minimize the risk of fire. The second layer of protection is safeguard. There are two types of safeguard, which is preventive and mitigative safeguards. For the preventive safeguards, the new policy made by the government should ensure that the storage facilities of ammonium nitrate is equipped with the safety instrumented system, such as the fire or smoke alarm system, and is monitored by a central station. For the mitigative safeguards, it is recommended to equip the facilities with water-based suppression system, which function to reduce both decomposition and the possibility of forming molten ammonium nitrate, which when confined can create an explosion hazard. Second one is to install an alarm system for a public notification to notify every individual within 1 mile of the facility of the need to evacuate as the explosion or fire happen. And then to consider the need to install a fixed water deluge system, which may also help limit the potential for environmental damage. Further details on the mitigative safeguard can be seen in the e-portfolio. The results of this incident has created a lot of public perceptions and opinions, especially towards the government's reputation. There is a group of protesters having perception that the President Michael Aoun and government's officers were already aware of that time bomb at the city's waterfront. They also suggest that there will be no new policy developed by the government, particularly in the enforcement of safety measures and regulation in order to prevent future incidents. On the public health aspects, Najat Saliba, who is an atmospheric chemist, has opined that the residents' exposure to the particle resulted from the explosion might cause acute and chronic health issues depending on the duration of the exposure. Furthermore, some were claiming that those directly affected by the blast were experienced severe distress and traumas named as post-traumatic stress disorder. This blast has also created serious perception on the authorities' negligence in safety measures adherence and questioning the rationale of the authorities' action to store an enormous amount of highly explosive materials for 6 years without proper storage. Public community of Lebanon will have trust issues toward the port authorities after the incidents. While in economic aspects, the Lebanese economy and supply chain are seen to worsen the already deteriorating socio-economic situation, which is likely resulting to a further increase in the number of poverties due to the estimated loss caused by the blast are around $15 billion. In environmental aspects, public were in view that the explosion will exacerbate the air quality of the country since the incident has released a lot of toxic and hazardous particles into the air, such as asbestos.
In a nutshell, Lebanese government should take vital decisions by identifying those who are responsible for the explosion and also the causes which triggered to a massive blast. The government could also work together with other countries and international experts for a smoother and effective investigation. Apart from that, Lebanese authorities should compile all evidence that needed together with some recommendation of the explosion for a comprehensive assessment to predict any damages or injuries in future emergency situations. According to a research on past accidents which involved ammonium nitrate, the disaster has similar root cause with an uncontrollable fire. Therefore, implementation of an outstanding safety program and maintain preventive measures are very crucial to prevent this kind of massive explosion by minimizing the hazard and risk.